What is up guys, it's Cal, and in this video I'm going to be doing a dungeon preview for Atal'Dazar, which is a dungeon on Zandalar. It's one that Horde are going to encounter during their leveling. Now just some backstory about this dungeon. For millennia, the Zandalar kings were laid to rest within the tombs of Atal'Dazar, secluded high atop the mountain Mugamba. These pyramids grew more elaborate with each passing ruler, as new rooms were constructed to house the deceased's vast wealth. Now these once pristine halls have been corrupted by the prophet Zul and his trusted lieutenant, Yzma, who seek to twist the power of these ancient kings for their own dark machinations. Now just like the rest of my dungeon preview videos, the video is going to be sped up, so it's not like a 30-minute long video, but then I'll show each boss encounter and explain how those bosses go currently. So let's get started. Now the first boss is Priestess Allen, and she actually has some real mechanics to her, not just a tank and spank fight. First off, there will be random brown swirls on the ground that spawn these red patches. Don't worry about those at the beginning, because throughout the fight, she's going to cast something called Transfusion, which affects all players in the party. By default, she'll shoot gold beams at the players. Now if you have a gold beam shooting at you, that means she's being healed for 0.5% of her health every second for 5 seconds. And it also hurts you slightly. But what you can do is you can run through one of those red patches on the ground, which will turn that gold beam to red, and it hurts her for 0.25% of her health every second. So when she casts Transfusion, run over one of the red patches on the ground and she'll start taking damage. You will also take damage, it's called Tainted Blood, but you still want to run through the red patches. And on top of that, she'll cast something called Gilded Claws, which just increases her physical damage, but that can be dispelled off. And then finally, she'll cast Molten Gold on a random player. It's just a 30-second magic debuff that does damage to that player. Healer wants to dispel it. And that's the entire fight. Next up is Volkal. Now at the start of the fight, you'll notice 3 totems around the room that are constantly healing them. The first thing your DPS want to do is kill these 3 totems. Throughout the fight, he's going to cast Lingering Nausea on random players. This affects stacks, and it does some damage, obviously. It's a disease effect, so if you can cure diseases, then make sure you do that. Now he's also going to leap at random players, and you'll notice when he does this by the giant green swirl on the ground. Don't stand in it or it will obviously hurt you. Now after all 3 totems are destroyed, he'll be affected with rapid decay, which means he's essentially just going to hurt himself every 0.8 seconds, but his damage is increased. The tank wants to tank him around the edge of the room, and the DPS either want to be towards the center of the room or behind him, because he's going to shoot toxic pools at random players, and you don't want these pools to be where the tank is tanking him. And that's the entire fight. Now for the next boss, Roseann, a giant bone raptor. The tank should tank him by this pillar here because he'll cast something called Terrifying Visage throughout the fight. If you don't hide behind something like that giant pillar, then you'll get feared. Now there are these purple bone piles on the ground. Try to dodge these because if you walk over them on accident, they'll spawn a bone raptor and it gives you an extra thing through the fight to kill. It also slows you down. He'll select a random person and start casting Pursuit, which means he'll fixate on you for a certain amount of time. As you see here, I try to disengage to get away from him. I end up disengaging onto a pile of bones, which slows me, and I just accept my fate. If he reaches you, he will do a lot of damage to you. And then finally, he just affects the tank with something called Serrated Teeth. Does damage, and the tank takes 30% extra damage for 8 seconds. And that's the whole fight. Now for the final boss, Yzma. Throughout the fight, she'll rapidly cast something called Racking Pain. It's a fast cast, but it is interruptible, so try to interrupt it because it hurts. Then at certain points throughout the fight, she'll cast Shadows of Shadra. It's going to spawn these shadowy spiders that move around the room. Just don't get hit by these. She'll mark a random person with Soul Rend. That person needs to move as far away from the boss as possible because when it's over, a shadowy figure of that person will spawn where their location is, and it'll slowly move towards the boss. All DPS need to switch and kill that shadow because if it reaches the boss, everyone takes taking damage for the rest of the fight. And then finally, she just affects the tank with something called Skewer, which does a pretty significant amount of damage. And that's the fight. That is also the entire Atal'Dazar dungeon. I quite like this dungeon. Out of the 3 I've done, which are Freehold, the Motherlode, and then this one was also the least buggy one. But if you guys like this video and want to see more alpha videos, you can leave a like on it, sub to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.